1517. Others are online on Zoom, and hopefully the folks on Zoom can hear me. Thank you for being here for this talk by Dr. Koray Caliskan, Data, Money, or Cryptocurrencies, Marco Polo Comes to the 21st Century. I'm Bill Maurer. I'm the Dean of the School of Social Sciences here at UCI and also the Director of the Institute for Money, Technology, and Financial Inclusion. And I'll just begin with a land acknowledgement that this event and the Irvine campus are within the ancestral and unceded shared territories of the Achaman and Tongva people. The region extends from the Santa Ana River to Aliso Creek and beyond. As members of a land grant institution, we acknowledge the Achaman and Tongva as the traditional land caretakers whose efforts to steward and protect the land continue today. And it is my pleasure to welcome Koray here this afternoon to speak about his new book, which I meant to bring up with me, but it's over there. His new book, Data Money, and the research that led to this book. Koray is an associate professor of strategic design and management at Parsons School of Design at the New School, and associate editor with me of the Journal of Cultural Economy. His latest research project on cryptocurrencies and blockchains was a winner of the Scientific Breakthrough of the Year Award in 2021 in social sciences from the Falling Walls Foundation in Berlin. The book, which I'll talk about today, was published by Columbia University Press, and currently he's working on a collaborative grant conducting research on the economic sociology of digital advertisements. Thank you for making the time to be with us here today. For the folks who are on Zoom, please feel free to put questions in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to field those after Koray speaks. Koray, it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Bill. That's very kind. It's also wonderful to be here. I'm a great fan of Bill's work. I've been following it many, many years. And also thank you to Paul Dorish, whose work actually opened a series of possibilities for researchers like mine, like my book, where we saw the material infrastructures of digital things and the conditions of making them stable, which was great. Also thanks to Jenny, probably one of the best, who showed us how to organize things in the best way possible. Thank you, Jenny, for this talk. Here is a summary. I'm going to first talk about what's new about cryptocurrencies. I'll try to show you that this is a new money material. And in terms of fiat currency, this is the third money material ever used in world history. I'm going to talk a little bit about economic platforms, and I'll try to explain a way to approach them in a new way. I'm going to argue that they are not two-sided markets, as many people think they are, and as many regulators want to regulate them. And I will also talk a little bit about crypto communities by drawing on fieldwork and surveys that I did with them. And we will try to read their pulse a little bit, try to understand who they are. For those of you who needs an executive summary, here is the main conclusion. There's nothing revolutionary going on about cryptocurrencies. They are a very important financial innovation, but there's no revolution. I mean, there's two tests for it. They don't change structures of power in our world right now, all right? Second, if someone is trying to convince you that there's a revolution, you can safely assume that there has not been one, because revolutions are one thing that you don't have to be convinced about. You know that they happened, right? However, I think it's also premature to think that they are nothing, that they are just speculation. To use a popular phrase, there's no need for a Schadenfreude. They're not going to collapse. They're not going to leave. They're going to change. They are already an almost $2.5 trillion economy. And we're going to take a look at what kind of an economy they are building. First, step back. Let's step back and think about history of fiat currency. This is not history of money because anything could be monetized. You can monetize a cigarette in a prison context. You can monetize calling cards in the army. The two things that I monetized when I was in prison and when I was in the army, right? However, when it comes to fiat currency, this is going faster. There are not many things that we can monetize. We monetized in 550 BC metals, Lydians, in a place called Sartre, where my mom and aunt lives right now. They're sitting next to us right here. They invented metal monies and used them. In 13th century, Kubilai Khan, another Turkic-speaking guy, came up with an idea of using paper to make money, plagiarizing from the Chinese, who had been using it for at least 2 centuries, but not as a part of his state-imposed monetary infrastructure. And 2008, possibly in California, by people who call themselves Satoshi Nakamoto, or a person called Satoshi Nakamoto, we saw the emergence of data money, the first Bitcoin. And this was also a new money material. But interestingly, data money was not possible for a very long time. Digitalized things were impossible. Let's take a look at analog exchange. When we buy a iPhone, we take out a wallet, something like this, open it, and take out paper money, something like that. I live in New York, so this is what we use in New York City. And then we give this, someone else, let's imagine that I'm giving this to Bill, and then I'm gonna give you this $100, and then can you sell me your iPhone for $100? That's excellent. That's very beautiful. There's this too. So that was a very, very good. Let me show it to you too. All right. That was a trade in analog exchange. I can also digitalize this exchange by sending $100 over HSBC to Bill. It's still paper money. Its representation is digitalized. All right. Let's try to do this without paper money with digital money. It's going to look something like that. All right. I'm going to send the code data to Bill, and then Bill is going to give me the iPhone, and then I will still have a phone. This is digital exchange. However, it's impossible. Why? Firstly, when I send this digital representation, it's so easy to imitate and use it again. So we can't just do it among each other without using an infrastructure, because digital things can be copied and pasted infinitely with minimal cost. What has changed in 2008 was to make this digital money possible by using data as a material to make it. Not using digital things to represent it. These are two different things. Blockchain made fraud impossible by giving a unique character to data. And this character was produced on a computational industrial context of accounting, and we call them miners, using analogies as if they are looking for something, but they're not looking for something. Why would someone look at those transactions and approve them on blockchains, this accounting system, if they don't get anything else? They begin to get something digital, which might be found useful, as Satoshi Nakamoto put it many years ago, and it was a Bitcoin. So those miners get their money from their accounting labor, and they accounted for transactions, thus making every digital thing unique in that system. It also made impossible. So it made it impossible to double spend it. Thus, you can't take a picture of Bitcoin or you can't copy it because it's not a data. It's not a piece of data in your cell phone or your computer. You cannot save a computer, save a Bitcoin in your computer. You can save its password, which is going to let you monetize the right to send data on a blockchain. So reversibility was also prevented. It was the first time that data could be monetized as the right to send it over something called blockchain. That was new. That's why it's going to stick. And that's why what we're going to see in the near future is that almost all states are going to move to data money, thus making cryptocurrencies also their legal tender and denomination. If you look at the blockchain, probably you have seen this. This is how it looks. There are keys, and then the right to send one key to someone else is the practice of monetization. So previously we monetized metals and the right to send them. The natural qualities of metals were making it possible to monetize them. It's very difficult to replicate them, and it's difficult also to carry them. Paper then made it possible to monetize things, and then we begin to imagine an infrastructural money over a nation state on the paper, and we still use them. And finally, we are now monetizing data. However, these are not digital currencies. A digital dollar is not a cryptocurrency, is not a data money, because you're still monetizing paper plus its digital representation. And it works on accounting principles, double entry bookkeeping on a state context. So it is not good to call them non-physical money. They are still material, and they draw on material computational industries, and they supply an actual economics service. Thus, many people like me are thinking that they're going to be replacing paper to a great extent, very much like paper replaced metal. When Marco Polo went to China, today's China, and met Kublai Khan, he saw paper money. And then he took those monies back to Venice. He was a merchant, as you know, in Venice. And half of Venice thought that in no time in history, in the future, there will be paper as working as money, because monies had metals as real signs of value in them. It had to be gold and silver for half of Venice. The other half thought that this was a financial innovation and picked it up and made Venice one of the richest cities in world history. We are seeing something like this. Has already been not even 2 decades since those new monies emerged, and we're going to be seeing many and different kinds of data monies emerging. Right now there's 3 types, but this is too granular. We can talk about it later in question and answer. As of February, the last time I checked data, we had around 80,000 markets, making them the fastest growing market experience in world history. There are more than 600 exchanges that trade those monies. The market cap is between $2 trillion and $3 trillion. It goes up and down all the time. And there are more than 40,000 cryptocurrencies or data monies. We can actually make a data money in less than 10 minutes here together. The principles of making money has never been that easy. Rendering it money and valuable is a different story, of course. Because making money both means creating a material where we can monetize its transfer. However, making it valuable is a very, very different subject. They are traded on platforms like Coinbase, Gemini, Binance. And these platforms have been seen as in three major ways. First, platform literature emerged in industrial design and management literatures. And then people begin to imagine platform products like a Walkman. And first, it was the name of a product. Then, with IBM's new infrastructure, people begin to realize that platforms have been doing other things, and they began to approach them. Koya and Julien proposed that we call them cybermediaries. It didn't pick up. I mean, one has to be very careful in how to, propose a concept. They have to be used well and easily. Wright called them, they're just markets doing different things. And then Rocher and Tirole, one of which got a Nobel Prize in the name of Alfred Nobel by Swedish National Bank, and called them two-sided markets, thus dragging Adam Smith's understanding of markets from Kirkcaldy, Scotland, from 17th century to today. If we look at those two-sided markets or platforms, and cryptocurrency platforms are among the most complex ones because they are the only platforms who do everything platforms do, plus making their own money, which was quite strange. Facebook tried that, and then you remember what happened. They called Mark Zuckerberg to the Senate, and then they said, we'll just destroy you if you try to do Libra. And then he got the point, and then he changed his mind. Google tried it, and monetizing many things in his, but never a Google coin or a crypto. They didn't try. But these cryptocurrencies all have monies. They work as mints, they work as banks, they work as vaults, they work as exchanges, as markets, data centers, information clearing houses, accounting agencies, and even in a few cases, as courts. So if they are devices, places, technologies, markets, companies, space of encounter, and many other things, how to describe them social scientifically and accurately? We tried to address this question with a series of designers, anthropologists, and sociologists, and we realized that one way to try to understand them is to represent their richness with visual instruments so that actors can also understand which part of a platform they are looking at. This illustration is a coming together of two illustrations of exchange platforms. And we asked the designers to collaborate to propose a new way of looking at them. Like in all economic relations, power relations inform their making in the beginning and afterwards. However, the second thing that seemed to be defining our experience with platforms is their possibility of giving us an exploration space, an exploratoriums. We explore our needs in them. We try to understand. That explains to a certain extent why we like them a lot and why we also use them very much. Critical platform studies try to look away from this part of it and try not to see what actors get from them, how actors hack them, and how actors change them. So we need to be careful also to include that side of platforms. And we see, especially in cryptocurrency platforms, so many sites of exploration. For instance, a feminist graduate student of mine with her organization invented a new money form that could only be used by women. And then it was sold to a company, and now the company hired her and they are making money. They are exploring different ways of making money, all right? When I told this to a friend of mine, he said, oh, this is neoliberalism. You see, neoliberalism is governing everyone. They are becoming capitalists. I was like, why don't we just, pull the brake right now? We are talking about feminists who are not naive. And if neoliberals were like trying to get them, they would be the first to show a red card. They are not naive actors. These actors know very well what they are doing in life. So this approach, we are publishing this. Donald Mackenzie, Michel Kellon, and I are going to be publishing it in our coming book on economization. Seems to be helping us to understand platforms a little bit better than approaches to it as just two-sided markets. And finally, there are many modes of economization in those platforms, such as the market, promotion, security, gift relations, and all the empirically identifiable forms of modes of economization in them. For instance, if one wants to study the market mode of economization in a given platform, it's important to look at how things are pacified, how agencies are imagined and enacted, how a variety of prices were produced and taken and resisted, and how different forms of market encounter design changes the market experience itself, and how in everyday relations those exchanges are maintained. Only after carrying out such a study of forms of economization in an exchange platform context that we think we can begin to understand those platforms. We propose that by using a concept that computer scientists stole from chefs and their kitchens, stacking those economization relations does not explain, but help us understand and approach those platforms. So we designed this strategy to approach platforms and then expect what to see in them prior to it. So it's not an a priori theory of platform, but a strategy to approach them. We can talk a little bit about it later if you want. Let's take a look at those exchanges inside of them, instead of their architecture. I worked in one of those exchanges I call X Exchange. It's one of the top 10 largest exchange platforms in the world. There are around 200 employees. It runs like a regular company, open offices, smell of coffee, and these carpets. It seems like this is the universal ethnographical thing that, as soon as you enter, you have the same industrial smell. It's like this. Everyone has a corporate language talking about things. They learn it when they first come to the organization. The older ones tell them that, oh, you need to use words like leverage, rapport, and all these stuff. Like, we need to leverage our competences and all these like talk. It's like what an anthropologist called bullshit jobs actually is there. And this is not very different from academia, because we also learn to speak in a certain way in organizational context. So this is very much like all other organizations that I studied. There was nothing empirically and radically new in that organization. I moved from them to a pop finance community. They were building a cryptocurrency called Electra. And I did interviews with them. I did a survey with them. And I also did field work in their digital spaces and begin to basically spend a lot of time with them. And I tried to take pictures of this global community. First, I used Twitter data. I looked at 18,700 followers and their followers. That gave us a huge data set to look at their interactions. And it turned out that it was not the people who were followed by the largest amount of people that were the most powerful, or it was not the people who were in the core group of the community that was very powerful when it comes to talking about this particular cryptocurrency. The data is in GitHub. You can download it. It's hashed, and it took like 6 weeks for us to download it from Twitter with a firehose. It was huge, but we compressed it well. So if you'd like to take a look at those interactions, there's wealth of information there. And we realized that looking at connectedness and betweenness, connectedness means the number of connections that an actor has. Betweenness is the frequency of mentions that an actor has receives from others. Turned out that Electra, Panther, Bitcoin Future, Pumping Altcoin, these persons, digital persons, were the most powerful in terms of connectedness. And in terms of betweenness, these 5 people were most powerful. And the core group of this cryptocurrency was very surprised to see that no one was in the core group among the people who were centers of this this cryptocurrency community once looked at through Twitter. How about we carry out an inter-platform? This photograph is showing us around 8 centers of power in this cryptocurrency community in terms of their in-betweenness and connectedness. And if we look at the same community from the perspective of Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, Facebook, Discord, and other platforms, so in an inter-platform study, their photograph, their picture, illustration may look something like that if we visualize all platforms together. Blue rectangles are Twitter, and others are orange Telegram, red Reddit, green Facebook, etc. I also put myself there, the founder, and also the Discord or group there at the center. And I tried to draw this illustration with actors themselves. So we shared the data with them. And then I asked them, what do you think about this? What do you think about it? Where do you think your place should be? Where do you think with the core group, those 250 people? And then they changed the illustration radically in a number of ways. For instance, they placed me away from the founder, who was going to sell the entire cryptocurrency and destroy its value in a couple of months, which gave me a wonderful opportunity to study a digital collapse and also emergence and also immigration, which is in one of the chapters of the book. And they also wanted to stretch how they looked a little bit to give signposts that these people are also members of other digital money or cryptocurrency or data money communities. So it is wrong to think that decentralized finance, decentralized communities do not have centers. We need to invent new ways of approaching to make sense of power relations in those communities. However, we need to calibrate our analysis of power in new economic communities and whose membership is expanding exponentially. What is it that we need to do in order to study relations of power in those new communities is a question that still stands there. My research shed light onto one community that could be studied with one person. What if we had 20 people studying those communities, crypto communities, say a research power that's enough to address questions of power in Ethereum community, which is hundreds of thousands of people? We don't know yet. But let's take a look at this electro community. What is their size according to their members? If you are a true believer in electro money, you're like thousands of people. If you are not that, you're not a radical in that community, radicals are like 5%, you're like, ah, we're like 3,000 people. If you are moderately active, you're like 500. But the core is for very active, it's 271. The maximum membership should be 18,000. And Discord acceptance is 430 core people. And I asked the core group a series of questions about their membership profile, and we got 243. I got 243 responses. This is a lot. This is a lot, like more than 50% of the community. And looking at how active they are, I can safely assume that it is very representative of who this core group is. I asked them why they are there. Top is for making money. However, the second and third, when combined, is more than making money, to learn about, and they enjoy being there. So this says something about these new financial communities who enjoy making money, not earning money, but making it possible, making data monies. They are also old. 57% have been members since the emergence of this cryptocurrency, since 2017. They are also very conservative. 75% of them have only 22% of their money in crypto. So this is not like young nerds who take all the money they got from their grandmother and then put it in Bitcoin. We don't see these people. They are teachers, nurses, accountants. They are not necessarily computer nerds. They don't know how to code, most of them. And they spend their Sundays in those communities mostly, where all the meetings in Discord happen most of the time. Why? Because they have kids, they have, husbands, they have partners, they have wives, they have life out of this. And they have, in average, an average cryptocurrency community member in this one has 38% of all assets in crypto. So if you want to put all assets in crypto, it's very small. And most of them have a minor investment in crypto. They are mostly from Europe and North America. I didn't ask them to identify their race, but just anecdotal experience, I can say that they are white, very educated males who live in the first world. And the average age is almost 40. This is not very young. So any finance community in trading, you have something older than 37. So we are not yet looking at young pop finance community. These are people whose average age is older than your stock traders in New York. They are very educated. They are mostly college graduates. They have an MA or a PhD. Let me wrap it up so that we can have a conversation maybe later. One thing that I saw here in this research is that we are looking at a new money form when we approach it from the perspective of fiat currency. And now there are legal scholars who define fiat currency not only from the perspective of sovereign currencies, but also non-sovereign currencies, like Bitcoin. Monies, fiat monies that are made and maintained by non-state actors, yet they can also work. So, but regardless of whether it becomes a fiat currency or not, for data money is not a fiat currency for the time being, except say in El Salvador, we are looking at a new money technology. And this technology is about monetizing the right to send data over a new accounting infrastructure called blockchain. Second thing that we learned in that research is that we cannot approach platforms as two-sided markets. If we do that, we cannot understand them, we cannot regulate them. And there's a mismatch between how regulators understand platforms and how platforms actors make them. The official language is that they are two-sided markets, but we have been failing to understand, to tax and regulate them. One thing about taxation, I had a meeting with IRS, and I showed them what they would have gained if they taxed with data money. And this is one of the probably largest tax loops, in tax holes in world economy since the emergence of data money. They are losing a lot of money by taxing using a less agile monetary technology. Crypto communities are new, but they are drawing on very old relations of power. They are mostly male. They are mostly Western. They are very educated. So if you're a woman, for instance, and not white, you can safely assume that you don't have a dime in this new economy or a safe. This is a big problem. These new tech, fintech, these new financial technologies that a lot of people try to show, ideologically speaking, as a way to address questions of capitalist relations or inequalities, try to show them as a center of hope. This is not what I saw in the cryptocurrency community that I saw. And they had to change their Twitter handle to Crypto for Women. And then they tried to do something after seeing the data that I shared with them, which also points to questions of performativity of sociologists or anthropologists' perspectives in those finance. And finally, what can we say about the future? I don't see any revolution, but we see a Cambrian explosion of economic devices, a new accounting system emerging, and also a mass tokenization movement. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching us over Zoom.
And we have a lot of time for questions and discussion. There's one that's been posted on Zoom already, actually a couple. So why don't I start with those and then I'll turn it over to the in-person people as well. So Don Patterson, hi Don, says, could you comment on the mechanistic role of these currencies in the sense that they also act as machines that connect with other currencies and digital infrastructure?
Hi, Dan. This is a very, very good question. We don't know yet for two reasons. We need to find, the public needs to have a financial technology as fast as cryptos to be able to follow what's going on. A lot of people would say that, but cryptos are not used for everyday exchange. And then this is, I talk to central bankers, bankers, I talk to IRS people, and then I ask them, how do we measure M1, which is the size of the economy as we have been imagining it? We look at how dollar moves hands, right? Do we look at how crypto moves hands? No. How do we know that it's not used? Oh, we can't know. So we need to find a way to follow money. You can follow metal monies with paper money technology. You cannot follow paper money movements with metal money technology. We are insisting on using paper money technology in order to follow what's going on in data money worlds. Places like Uniswap, for instance, allows people to exchange, trade cryptocurrencies without fiat currency, which they had a problem with SEC, as you might have followed. We cannot follow what's going on there precisely because we don't use an agile technology of money. When I say we, I'm assuming that public, in a democratic context, can control money flows, but critiques of capitalist relations have shown us that the public has rarely such a capacity to control what's going on in their countries. Forget about authoritarian contexts. If the state begins to control this and all paper money disappears, we don't know what's going to happen in authoritarian contexts, but we can safely assume that authoritarian leaders will be having more capacity to control dissent if this was possible. After all, as you know, credit card was the dream of Stalin, but they didn't have enough computers to realize it. They wanted to get rid of rubles, paper rubles, and made everything electronic. But for payment systems, I think Bill can help us. He's with his colleagues, are masters of this universe, and we learn much from them on this topic.
So the next question that's been posted in the Zoom is from Ricky Crano, who says, pointing out the materiality of data money calls attention to the energy consumption and carbon footprint of proof of work crypto mining. By most accounts, this sort of currency is simply inconsistent with the maintenance of life on the planet. Can you speak to that issue and offer?
Yes, this is a wonderful, okay, I'm going to go there. Thank you very much. This is a very, very good comment. It's right. I have two answers on that. Think about locomotives as an analogy. Bitcoin is a locomotive that operates with coal. Ethereum is a locomotive that operates with diesel engine. Avalanche or Solana are locomotives that operate with solar power. It depends on what kind of accounting technology we use. If you're using Bitcoin, it burns a lot of electricity. However, think about the economy that Bitcoin is rendering and creating with that kind of electric consumption and its monetary value, it's huge. Think about a steel plant. It would spend the same amount of electric to produce a smaller economy. So in terms of cost analysis, it's still cost efficient. However, in terms of planetary assetization perspective, it's terrible. That's why I would never touch, for instance, Bitcoin. Or many progressive people would not buy or sell or make it possible. And looking at the very slow technology of Bitcoin in terms of monetary transactions, I don't see a future. I don't think it is going to be used by actors in the future. And we're going to be moving to, instead of proof of work blockchains, to proof of stake blockchains like Ethereum moved and many others do, which is you can actually account for new blockchains by using negligible electric power, which is more in rapport with planetary concerns. But thank you for this question. It's a very good one.
Let's pause and see if there's a question from the room. There is another one here, but Paul.
Paul, I'm going to give you that mic so that people can hear you.
Sounds like a good idea. So thank you very much, Koray. As usual, I'm going to be thinking about this for months in order to try to unpack it all. I want to push you a little about the word platform. And you were not inappropriately a little dismissive of critical platform studies, which I think by and large misses a key idea from that initial Gillespie platform paper, which is that platform is a claim, right? Platform is not a thing. It's a claim that people make about their kind of neutrality and openness of their technologies and their business model. And so given that you yourself sort of pointed to the very particular kinds of demographics of participants in these worlds, I wonder if your use of the term platform might not be letting people off the hook a little, and too easily, as critical platform studies does, too easily granting to the people playing in this space the notion of their own openness and the equality or equity that they offer in their technologies. So I want to sort of push a little bit and wonder whether both within the academy and in our engagements in broader society, we might need to sort of push back a little bit on those kinds of the claims that the very term platform makes.
This is a wonderful comment. This was from Paul Dorish, whose work actually opened a series of possibilities for people like mine, and including this research. Thank you, Paul. Critical platform studies is great, and I learned a lot from it. But we need platform studies first, and then find ways of critiquing it. I see very often a critical ethos preceding our analytical questions about what a platform is. I don't think this is done by many people, but if I may use, for instance, the example of Shoshana Zuboff, who says that platforms are destroying markets and destroying civilization, and they are doing terrible things. They watch us, they do this, they do that. I'm not sure such criticality is useful. It prevents us from understanding them, plus presenting ways of making sense of them for regulators, for public and tax collectors. Social sciences, we do three things. When someone says this, he's 90% of the time wrong, because we do many things in social sciences. But with this thing, I think I may be right. We either study conditions of possibility and history. What makes markets possible? What is their history? This is Karl Polanyi, right? They explain history of making of markets, but never say what a market is. We study consequences of things, and critical platform studies usually study consequences of, say, Google, which is great, legitimate, and I love it. But they make something very interesting. They assume to know what a platform is. Strategically stay away from presenting what it is actually. I believe one of the critical potentials of platform study is missed if we do not target this third option, which is, what is it? What really is a market? Yes, we know their consequences. They may be terrible, but what is it? How are we going to regulate it? How are we going to make them better? How are we going to put together a new way of approaching them? I believe this contribution is a contribution to the people who try to analytically locate what a platform is. It's a claim, but everything is a claim. Any institution starts with a claim. We need to understand the economic universe that they create. I'm working on Google, for instance, as we were talking about right now. I can start with its, consequences, and it's not very difficult to find many and terrible consequences of it. But these consequences do not help us understand how Google works. I ask people think that Google searches internet and gives us our results. This is one of the devices or platforms or places, however we approach it, that united humanity for the first time. We have never used such a device in world history. Every day, billions of people. And then we don't know how it works. This is what I try to address in this paper with Michelle and Donald. This is one strategy. I stay away from a priori defining this is a state and go, this is a market and go study it. I try to locate strategies of approaching it so that we can open ways of studying it. If this takes away from a possibility of criticality in the study of the platform, if there's a possibility like this, it's terrible for this research. But I believe basing and constructing the strategy itself on power relations themselves, not thinking about it as an a posteriori consequence, but an embedded structural definition of a platform, I think there is enough signposts to show us that we need to be critical about these things too. However, I still want to keep open this empirical space to understand how they work. But I completely understand and find your question very legitimate and try to address it in research. Again, this time in Google research. Thank you.
Is there another question from Abigail? I'm going to make you run.
Yeah.
So much. Thank you for the talk. I'm especially intrigued by the social hierarchy you presented to us on this. The community, crypto community are majority of the profile are Western male. And the example you give in your talk about a student of yours designing this money used by women, that's especially interesting an example to challenge, I think, the kind of community profile in a crypto community. And it make me think about financial imaginaries that some fail, some are possible. First, it make me think about these local currency experiments that have been an effort across the globe since the 1980s at least, but many failed. And but the ideals are one with certain community social justice values. And so I just want to ask, could you say more about that example of your students' successful example of making certain financial imaginary possible and really showing us some positive possibility? Thank you.
That's great. This is the book. This is Bill's copy, so you can take a look and then stand back. Don't take it with you. That's a very good question. About many community money projects fail. I think that's the case, but more state money projects fail. Take out dollar, euro, renminbi, and a couple of others. Everything is a failure in the world. Turkish lira, when I first moved from Istanbul to Brooklyn, well, Turkish lira was $2.5. Now it's 32. I mean, if you want to talk about failure, let's talk about fiat currency and state money failures. If you want to talk about failures on systemic level, the scale of failure that we see in Western financial regimes every other 10 years is 1,000 times larger than all community projects that failed in history of humankind. If we want to talk about failure, it's the failure of capitalist relations. Communities are making monies, and they will continue to tokenize. They will continue to mark identities, earmark, as Viviana Zelizar would put it. And I think their endurance is a testament to their success. With cryptocurrencies or data monies, we see, I don't want to call it more democratic, depends on relations of power in a given community, of course, but easier to make money. But for instance, I teach money and banking, and we start by designing a bank. When you give students, graduates or undergraduate, Keynes and all these like monetary and finance and law and all these books, they don't read anything. They are very boring, and I can't stand reading. When you build a design group and tell them that we're going to build a bank together, it's like, they need everything to be able to build that. Right? So now we are using design as a social scientific method to understand things, not necessarily to make it. I believe sociologists and anthropologists and all social studies, all social scientists have taken their critique of positivism too seriously and thought that they found a way to make things visible better and stop there. That was like 40 years ago. And then all we have designed and invented was something called round table as a knowledge production device, which actually existed in ancient Rome. They had tables which were round, and they would gather and discuss things. What is it that we invented since then? How do we use making money, designing an infrastructure in order to learn about life? We don't. We are not trained to do that because of our fear of social engineering, and for rightful reasons, which was used for many years with terrible consequences. But I believe it's time to use it, and a student of mine did it. Another student of mine designed a new ambulance to save life in India, and Mercedes bought his company, and then he moved to India, hiring people from Tesla, from California, moving all together. And the ambulance is like this table right now. It's very small, because in India, people are not huge like here, all right? And then they can just use many things, and then they are saving lives. So this was another intervention, and it was a new economic, we have a class called New Economies and Societies in Parsons School of Design. It came from that class project. He was already interested in that. Very much like this other feminist student of mine who invented. She worked in banks before and in finance, and then became a designer, strategic designer. We design a process of design. This is strategic. This is what strategic design is. It's very anthropologically focused because we believe in fieldwork. It's also actor network informed because we believe in the agency of actors and devices and networks and representations. We pay attention to performativities and try to bring together these four things. And I believe that they have a potential to change things in social research and also, thus, perhaps, in life. I can't tell her name and the project because of the, I mean, it's, after all, it's a company who both.
Further questions. There's one further question that's been posted online, which might be a good one to end on. It's the prognostication. Look into your crystal ball. Okay. When do you think cryptocurrencies might be more mainstream in everyday transactions?
It has become an important part of everyday transactions. They are not mainstream, but they are going to be mainstream as soon as the state begins to use them. And there are many blockchains that states are considering to build. I believe in United States, they are considering Avalanche, which was an interchain developed in Ithaca. Again, most big tech, financial tech things come from universities like Yahoo, Google, Avalanche. They're all from universities, and most of them are from public universities, like UC system, as you know. And we're going to be seeing their adoption more. And in the future, if I look at my crystal ball, I think we're going to go to the past. We're going to be using multiple monies like we used to do 200 years ago. And we're going to be choosing different logics of economization among them. It's like we use credit cards right now, or airline coupons, other things that were in everyday exchange. We are only following the movement of monetized value with US dollar, right? It's a way to control the movement of values in economic systems. This is the use of money for the state and the public. And in democratic contexts, we need to be able to control. It can't be an individual thing. It's not like the state shouldn't know what, I do with my money. Well, I mean, people who say things like this are people like Trump. If you want to pay your taxes, if you want to share, if you don't want to do union busting, no need for you to hide anything that you do economically, because the public needs to have a cut. This is what social democrats argue. And I believe that in the future, we're going to be seeing moving financial instruments to more data monies, and acceptance of exchange traded funds only a couple of weeks ago is a sign that mainstream financial actors made a peace with cryptos. However, it took some time because the state dragged its foot in regulating and taxing cryptocurrency spaces. And we had unfortunate events like FTX, where a lot of people lost their money because the state didn't do its job.
Well, Koray, thank you so much for the talk and for the conversation. Thanks to all who joined us here in person, as well as those who are remaining online. And thank you, Jenny, for bringing us all together also. The recording will be posted eventually on the IMTFI website with the School of Social Sciences here at UC Irvine. And I wish everyone a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this wonderful